Hey guys, it's Ornlu, and it's been a hot second since we've done one of these more classic tier list videos, and as you can see by the title of the video and up there, we're going to be doing a 4v4 BF tier list. So this is Rage Forest, as I'm sure you guys have been seeing around, through various YouTube channels, streams like mine, and of course the big $10,000 Rage Forest tournament that is being hosted by Williams, which is wrapping up this weekend. So, 44BF, if you don't have a lot of experience with it, it's kind of its own beast. You have very different roles between flanks and pockets, and especially at the higher levels, it is more aggressive than you may think. So, before I jump into this tier list, and there's going to be a lot to cover, we need to first figure out, okay, what exactly do you look for in a strong BF civ? And to do that, you kind of need to think about the different roles of the players. So, starting with the flank, so the players on the ends in a team game, this is usually hyper aggressive. Lots of villager fighting, lots of just trying to finagle as much space as possible. You kind of have a couple different approaches. You can go with a more low eco approach with like a Castle Age push, even the Tower Rush and Feudal Age, Monks, Fast Imperial Age, that sort of thing. Or you can try and take it a bit more defensively, go for huge walls on your side, and then boom up to a big eco in the late game after all of your Vil fighting. So the sorts of civs that are going to thrive in those situations, and I'll explain that as we go through this, those are going to be your good flank civs. Pocket, you generally have a little bit of distinction. In general, there's a lot of variety in terms of how BF is played, especially because the map gens, like how many choke points there are, how many pawns there are, and just how the game state looks at any given point. All of that can vary massively. So a lot of this is going to be in general, just to let you guys know. But in general, for pockets, you have a Halb Siege Civ, or an Infantry Siege Civ, and you have a Paladin Civ. That way you get this nice combination of mobility and strength that you're looking for. But again, there are exceptions. Speaking now to the tiers really briefly, this is in the context of mostly a pick civ situation, so we're thinking about the civs, how they can be played to their best, not necessarily can you make them work in any given situation. So S tier civs obviously going to be the very best. You see these guys drafted all the time in like the top few picks in Rage Forest. You have A tier civs, obviously just a little bit below that. B tier is going to be pretty big, guys. It's going to be a little under half the civs, which I guess makes sense if you look at a general curve of strength. C tier civs are going to be a bit more situational, but can be quite powerful. And the D tier civs are generally not very popular, but I do want to underscore the fact that you can make pretty much every single civ work. So it's not like the D tier civs are hopeless, but they are generally more difficult to play. So with all of that set up, let's just power through this tier list, shall we? Are Aztecs going to get their privilege of going right to the S tier? No, they're going to be in the B tier. Aztecs, you can play them as either flank or pocket. You can play them on flank mostly with an aggressive monk rush style, fast imp, trebs, that sort of thing. And in pocket, it's generally a bit more focused on pikes and siege. Champions maybe a bit more these days with Gambesons, even Jaguar warriors. But generally, it's going to be mostly pikemen, siege. Of course, you do have siege onagers and siege rams with this civ. Monk's always going to be a part of it. Strong eco, good stuff, not really anything that's going to be top tier. Bengalis will be also joining them in the B tier. Now, these guys are almost exclusively played on flank in my experience, and you don't really have a lot to help you out in like the early game, but your monk rush, as with Aztecs, is quite strong. You have a good eco with the extra villagers, and you have a bit of a different approach than Aztecs in the late game, as it is going to be all about those elephant archers, and they just represent a ton of value that once you get a bunch of them, it is just difficult to actually stop, at least without a ton of siege onagers. And of course, the monk's still going to be a potent addition there. But it's slow to get to that. So if you're playing that more eco-oriented style, it's still going to take you a while to get to the army you're looking for. Berbers, going to be going in the C tier. You might be able to justify B tier on the previous patch, but remember, this is now with Berbers only having 5% faster moving villagers in the Dark Age, and this civ was mostly picked for its Vil fighting abilities, as faster moving villagers allowed you to win versus almost every other civ. So now that you're not able to do that, you're kind of in this spot where you really want to go to Camel Archers, and Camel Archers are awesome. They give you so much long-term value and just a great power unit in the late game, but without any eco bonus to really help you get there, it can be quite difficult. If you're trying to play them as like a pocket cavalry civ, you just don't have that pop efficiency that you're looking for. So you can make them work, but especially now that their vil fighting power is nerfed, not going to be nearly as good. Bohemians, right to the S tier. This civ is picked first in Rage Forest all the time. Interestingly, I don't think they're that good as a flank. We used to see them as flank reasonably often, but this is a civ that really thrives in a high eco situation, and that can be difficult to make work on the flank. I mean, your Monk Rush is okay, but you generally would rather be doing Halbhofnitze when you can get away with it. And of course, you're more able to do that in the pocket. Hofnitze, they're not siege onagers, but they're kind of, they're different, right? They don't have the raw power in terms of flattening as many units as possible, but you have that range and you have that anti-building capability that is just so deadly. Your halbs are awesome with the extra bonus damage versus cavalry. Your eco is like okay, not that crazy, but still it is good enough, and you can even add in stuff like hand cannoneers and bombard towers to help out as well in the late game. So really, really strong civ, S tier for sure. Britons, gonna be another S tier civ. These guys are one of the best flanks. It is really, really hard to push a deeply entrenched Britons with longbowmen and warwolf trebs. Your economy is really strong. You're actually pretty decent at vil fighting because the faster working shepherds allows you to sort of minimize the amount of idle TC time that you'll necessarily rack up when you're sending a lot of your early vils forward. Yeah, you get a bunch of longbowmen. It's really difficult to push. Now, I wouldn't say the Britons are like perfect or anything because it is still tricky to push with them. You're just very, very slow. So if you're like one flank is like dying, it's difficult for the Briton flank to sort of counteract that by going with a really strong push on the other side. It's like everything about these guys is slow. It's really strong, but it is slow. So that's just something you need to keep in mind when playing Britons. Still absolutely top tier flank. Bulgarians in the B tier. They're basically your stock standard halb siege onager civ. You don't have a ton to help you out economically, and your halbs and siege onagers aren't really anything too exciting. They get the job done, but it's more like, okay, we'll just pick these guys because all of the better halb SO civs are taken or you want to save them, so nothing too exciting. Burgundians, gonna be in the C tier. They do work as a paladin civ. Your economy is really strong. You have those nice timings with the fast paladin upgrade as soon as you hit Imperial Age. You're still lacking a lot of population efficiency that other civs have, though you still have your bombard cannons, your hand cannoneers with extra attack, you have bombard towers, you have Coustier potentially. So it's not like it's horrible, but pound for pound matters a lot in Black Forest, as you can imagine with things going to late game all the time. So they are going to be in the C tier. Burmese, also going to be in the B tier. Solid flank civ. You don't really see them in pocket very much, but you know, decent eco. Your monk play is really good. You can go a Rombai with a castle drop if that's something you're looking for. Your men-at-arms rush is really good with the extra attack. So that's actually something that is worth considering if you have a particularly open BF gen. And then in the late game, you have strong monks, you have strong halbs with the extra attack, and then you can even transition into battle elephants. And there have been several games I've seen that have actually been closed out by Burmese battle elephants, and Arambai as well, of course. So nothing that's like really going to be pushing them over the top, but a very solid civ nevertheless. Also in the B tier will be the Byzantines. I have seen them in pocket, where you generally go for a cataphract right away, and this can work out really well against an enemy halb siege civ, but you still don't have an eco bonus, and cataphracts don't really trade very well versus a bunch of heavy cavalry. Generally, you play them on flank, where they can do a low eco fast imp style quite effectively, and they still have strong stuff to do in the late game. They're Byzantines. They're rarely terrible. They do prefer that flank style, I'd say, in general, but yeah. I mean, Byzantines are fine. Celts going right to the S tier. When you're looking for a halb siege civ, Celts are definitely one of the ones that come to mind. You have arguably the best siege onagers in the game, amazing siege rams, halbs are speedy, woad raiders are now stronger this patch, you have strongholds, castles, giving you that extra healing as needed. I mean, if you're looking for that archetype of infantry and siege, Celts are just one of the best at fulfilling that. Easy S tier, always have been top tier BF and always will be. Chinese, D tier. One of the last two picks most of the time, as we've seen throughout the Rage Forest tournament. You might be thinking, but Chinese are really good. They are, in a lot of cases. This isn't one of them. If you play them in pocket, you kind of die to siege onagers and strong bombard cannons. And you see those a lot in Black Forest, so you generally want to avoid that. If you play them on flank, where you would normally expect Chinese to thrive, I mean, Chukonu, Bombard Towers, Siege Rams, Halbs, like, that is all good, but you can't send any Vils forward to fight at the beginning of the game because, you start with 0 food. So you need to keep all your Vils at home, which can allow your opponent to just wall right in front of you. And if you have a bunch of walls like right in front of your base, you can find yourself trapped really easily. You're also extra vulnerable to getting lamed, which, as I said, is very popular on BF, just sending all those Vils forward. You can still make Chinese work. I've seen them work on both flank and pocket, but it's not easy. Like I said, it's just it's not a very comfortable civ in BF. Cuman's going to be in the A tier. These guys are pretty much only played as a pocket paladin civ, and in that role, they are quite good. You have an amazing boom with your 2 TCs that can further be exacerbated by a fish boom. If you have access to that, all of that is quite nice. You still kind of run into the situation where you have speedy paladins with cheap stables, but that's really all you offer. Maybe step lancers with an extra pierce armor are going to be a bit more viable in early Imperial Age. I've seen that a little bit, but yeah, like they're one of the better paladin civs out there for sure. But still nothing that is like super impressive in the late stages of the game. Dravidians, also going to be in the B tier. These guys are interesting because you can play them as a pocket Halb Siege Onager civ, especially now that you have the wood discount on your siege units and you have Woot Steel Infantry, which is really strong. Or you can play them on flank and go for a more Elephant Archer / Arb timing focused play. They're pretty solid in both roles, but not necessarily overwhelming in either. A civ that you can certainly, slot into a lineup and be at least relatively happy no matter where they are. You have bad monks, which really kind of hurts you on flank, and your eco isn't insane to help you out in pocket, and missing siege engineers really does hurt your siege onager play a fair bit. But still, Dravidians can kill stuff really well. Like, Elephant Archers, really high DPS with the faster attack speed, and Woot Steel is pretty awesome ignoring armor. So yeah, another solid B tier civ. Ethiopians go into the A tier. It's funny, they are an absolutely top tier flank on open maps, but in BF you play them in the pocket. Your boom isn't that crazy. You can go for some nice quick uptimes and add in TCs that way with your extra extra resources when you hit the next stage. You get the free pikeman upgrade to kind of help you get to Halbs maybe a little bit more easily, but of course this civ is all about the Torsion Engine Siege. It's just really, really good in post-dip. Your siege onagers with a 2-tile blast radius, your siege rams that flatten everything, even your scorpions and bombard cannons can work, and just with that strong infantry support, maybe Showtells are going to be a bit more viable now that they have the new Royal Heirs buff. Just a really solid civ. I don't think they quite compare to a civ like Celts, who I think just have a little bit more power economically and just sort of that raw strength that you're looking for, but Ethiopians, they're definitely a good civ. Franks, gonna be going to the A tier as well. If you're looking for a paladin civ, Franks are still gonna be among your better choices. Your paladins with the extra HP, chivalry to help you spam them faster, cheap castles are nice. I mean, as far as the cav civ goes, if you want a paladin civ, Franks are there for you. You have a solid eco, not quite as good as Cumans, but your paladins end up being a bit better, and you have things like bombard cannons to help out, which can be nice. You do have fully upgraded halbs if need be. Franks are just a good paladin civ, though. Nothing more, nothing less. It's basically what you would expect. Goth's gonna be going in the C tier. This is kind of hard to say. You put them in pocket. Generally, you just need a big eco to make them work. You see Goths with Mongols a lot. It's a really popular combination because Goths can spam infantry in the front, and then Mongols can support with Mangudai and Siege in the back. So the two civs, they worked well together. But in general, you don't have that population efficiency that you're looking for, and you don't have an amazing boom either. So it's not a civ that you're super excited to play, but it's Goths, and there are still times when Goth spam just kills everything. So, like the other C tier civs, they can be really powerful, but it is going to be pretty situational. Gujurs, gonna be going to the D tier, perhaps a little surprisingly. This is a civ that really kind of struggles with population efficiency. I've seen them on flank trying to work, where you have the early mill to help mitigate some of the food losses from the Vil fighting, but then you're still in a situation where you want to go cav, and that's not usually that good on flank in a lower eco setting. And if you play them in pocket, there is actually a timing in early imp where they are insane with Shrewdriders running over all of the players who are trying to get their early imp production set up, but After that, you're just running into the issue of population efficiency, and Gujars are not a civ that love dealing with Halb siege on closed maps. You know, they like the mobility. Not really a civ that shines all that much in BF. Hindustani is going to be going to the B tier because we don't have enough of those civs. Hindustanis are okay. You see them on flank sometimes because the cheaper villagers helps a lot if you're sending a bunch of your vills forward to fight, but the issue is to transition out of that to your late game army, you want Shatagni hand cannoneers and bombard cannons. All of that can be quite good, but it's very, very slow to get to. And it's still not as much of a reward as, say, Bengalis and their elephant archers, right? Those are also really slow to get to, but it just creates this sense of inevitability almost in a lot of cases. Hindustanis, like, they're good, but not that good. You can play them in pocket as well. Go for the imp camels. Imp camels aren't quite as good as they are on open maps because you're oftentimes just running into a bunch of halberdiers, which doesn't feel as great. But still, imp camels, they work really well versus cavalry, and you still see plenty of that from the pocket in BF. So they're a little bit weird. They're not like the most straightforward civ to play, but they can totally work and just, you know, another decent civ. Also, Caravanserai can be fun in the late game if you really want to get that efficient trade. Huns. Gonna be going in the B tier. I don't see them as good as Franks or Cumans as the Paladin civ, but, you know, Huns are Huns. You have a solid eco. You got Paladins that train faster. You do have Cav Archers, which I have seen work in some situations, but yeah, nothing that's terribly exciting. They get the job done. Inca's kind of an interesting one. It's hard to say exactly with the new patch, because this is just one of the most improved civs there. I am going to put them in C tier, because you do kind of struggle a lot versus strong gunpowder and siege. That said, Kamyuks are really good. Like, you get a bunch of those get bad boys in a choke point, and if you don't have the proper tools to stop them, they will just kill, like, everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And they're fairly cheap now, too, with that food discount. Your Vil fighting doesn't really get helped much because you don't get the blacksmith upgrades until Castle Age, so that's not really a thing. Flank Civ, obviously, in case that wasn't super clear. I mean, they can work. They can be strong against situationally powerful, but it is that. It's situational. Your eco isn't, like, that exciting. Decent Civ, but not, I think, quite as good as some of the other options you have out there. Italians. Gonna be in the B tier. They're a Civ that absolutely love having a pond to fish boom with. Get the cheaper fishing ships. You play them on flank. I like Italians a lot on BF. Genbos are awesome, cheap cannons are great, bombard towers, you have strong defenses, you have good monks. What would keep them from A tier? Well, you don't really have, like, the craziest power units in the world. There are civs that just feel maybe a little bit stronger, but could I argue A tier with these guys? I'm going back on it. I'm changing my mind. I'm going to put A tier. Italians, like, they become just super strong if they have access to that fish boom, which is common enough. I haven't really talked about fish booms all that much because, in general, you just want to do it if your civ can get away with it, as in, do you have a safe pond? It's just really important to fight over, and some civs are going to benefit disproportionately from having a pond, and some civs aren't going to benefit as much. And we'll get to those in a little bit, but Italians definitely one that benefit a lot. You know, condos can even work in certain situations. We're going to stick them in A tier. I like Italians here. Japanese. Ooh. If I put Italians in A tier, can I also put Japanese in A tier? Can I go crazy? I had them in B tier on the list I made before this video. I mean, you're awesome with the fish boom. Faster working fishing ships. You know what? I've seen a couple games, guys, where Japanese just go ham in the late game with Yasuma keeps. Like, Yasuma keeps are so awesome at locking down an area. Samurai are even a bit more affordable. Your halbs are good. Your monks are good. So that can all help a lot on the flank. You do lack a little bit in terms of population efficiency, but where your army is lacking in population efficiency, that's where the Yasuma towers come in. Because although they don't cost population, they are very expensive, especially in the late game when you're buying, you know, 100 stone for 300 gold. It's not the easiest civ to make work, but I have seen them just do so much in the late game, and Kachaparuto Trebs are awesome. I think it was last Rage Forest, so like a year ago, there was a game with ACCM where he made like 20 Kachaparuto Trebs and just killed everything. I mean, that was pretty awesome to see. So yeah, we're gonna put Japanese in A tier. Khmer, gonna be going in the C tier. This is a civ that sounds a lot more awesome than it actually is. You do have the crazy cut potential with your Castle Age Ballista Elephants, but in general, you're playing these guys in the pocket, you're booming up, and then you're going for a bunch of elephants. It can be good. Again, like with the rest of the C tier civs, they are powerful, but you kind of get flattened by Halb Siege Onager and strong bombard cannons. So it's a little bit awkward. Also, if the civ has a fish boom, they aren't making use of their farms. You still want a fish boom, but it's something that always makes me like, ugh, the lack of efficiency. Ugh. So yeah, Chimera gonna be in C tier. The elephant play can be solid, but generally speaking, you would rather have other civs. Korean's going to be going to the A tier. Very strong Halb Siege civ. You have the Halbs that are cheaper, although you must blast furnace with the wood cost. You have Siege Onagers that can get extra range. You have the towers, which are really good at locking down positions, because remember, with that 13 range, you need to have trebuchets or elite cannon galleons or Turk bombard cannons to really fight that comfortably. You do see them in pocket, which is, different than what you'd have on an open map, because they are, like on open maps, more of an archer civ. War wagons can situationally be good, although you still have to worry a lot about siege onagers. But yeah, Halb Siege is something that Koreans are quite strong at, and having that tower support is a nice boost as well. So definitely solid A tier civ. Lithuanians going to be going in the A tier as well. They are picked early on in drafts a lot in Rage Forest, but that was also a fair bit on the last patch. Now remember, you have the you only start with 100 extra food, but you get 100 more food when you add in TCs. So your boom is stronger, but your early game Vil fighting isn't quite as good. But yeah, Lithuanians, you play them on the flank on BF, which is, again, a little bit counterintuitive if you're more familiar with open maps. It's all about the Vil fight. Vil fight, Vil fight, Vil fight, and then you can go for a low eco monk approach behind it, which can work. You can add in some speedy halbs, which can work. But ideally, you just kind of defend, boom, and then get to a bunch of elite Lechai with 4 relics, and then that works out pretty well. The Lithuanians actually combo quite nicely with Goths and Mongols, because Goths spam infantry. You have Mongols adding in the Siege Onagers and the Mangudai, but you're sort of lacking a traditional Paladin civ if you have those pocket setups, whereas Lithuanians, they are a good flank, and then you can add in the Lechai later on. So I'm a big fan of like those 3 civs working together, and I still think Lithuanians are a solid A tier pick. I don't quite think they're S tier though, because there's just this really awkward time in the mid game where you don't really have a lot going for you. Magyars going in the B tier. Like Hunt, they're a Paladin civ. You don't really have an eco bonus. Your Cav Archers can sometimes be useful, but they still kind of die to Siege Onagers. If you're looking for a Paladin civ, there are better options out there, but you still have fully upgraded Paladins, and again, situationally, those Cav Archers, so not the most exciting civ for BF, but I still like them more than Burgundians by a little bit. So B tier it is. Malay. Kind of debating between C tier and B tier. I think I am going to put them in B tier. They have just gotten buffed recently with the free armor upgrades, which is really nice. Cat switching to like Karambits or Halbs is much easier. You have bombard cannons. You have an amazing fish boom if you can get away with that, although I still don't think you quite have the strength of Italians or Japanese. But still good archers, good monks. You have the elephant play possible. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I like Malay and B tier. A solid civ. You don't have the greatest power units in the world, but you do have some very efficient options. And, if you get 60 fish traps with Malay, that just feels good. It doesn't matter if you win the game or not. It just feels like you won. So yeah, B tier for Malay. Malians, although they did get buffed recently and they feel awesome for Arabia, I'm going to put them in D tier for BF. Maybe you could make an argument for C tier. I just don't really feel like Malians shine on this setting. They're much more of like an early to mid game oriented civ. I've seen them played on flank, where you kind of open archers, and then maybe switch into some like Gebettos, bombard cannons as a support to your pocket. It's still kind of slow to get going. You've seen some monk play from them. It just doesn't feel super great. If you play them in pocket, you have Farimba Cavalier and Camels, which is something, but you'd still rather have a Paladin civ in general. So yeah, it's just not a civ that really seems to thrive on BF. Mayans, also going to be in the D tier. These guys are usually towards the bottom of civ drafts. Unfortunately, you die to Siege Onagers really hard. As long as there's like any kind of meat shield in the front to help with the Eagle Warriors, you just die to Siege Onagers. You can try and make some aggressive plays happen with your archers, but you don't really have very good monks. You don't have the power units of Aztecs or the efficiency in like especially choke points with cameos that Incas do. It's just not a civ that really thrives that much on Black Forest. Like, again, you can make them work. You can make any civ work. I've seen it before, but Mayans don't really excite me on BF. What a civ that does excite me on every setting is Mongols, but especially on BF because, yeah, S tier, you have lots of boars you can take on Black Forest. People have gotten really good about luring the 3 boars with 1 villager. You have Elite Mangudai and you have Drill Siege. It's Mongols in late game and maps with lots of hunt. One of the best pockets out there. Don't think I need to explain this in detail. Persians. B tier or A tier? I'm going to put them in B tier for now. They do benefit nice a little bit from the fish boom with the faster working docks. But still, they're sort of your stock standard paladin civ. I like them more than Magyars and Huns because you have a better economy, and you also have the elephant switch in late game, which feels really awesome. Also, you have bombard cannons. You know what? I'm going to put them in A because war elephants. This is like the only time you ever get to see war elephants, man. And war elephants, guys, they can close out games really well on Black Forest because if you have 50,000 HP of units coming at you, it is very difficult to stop. And you have a good eco, you can still go for that paladin play just fine. I still, in general, they're not probably quite as fast as Franks or Cumans, but it's Persians, man. They have war elephants and fully upgraded paladins. How bad could it be? And again, having access to those bombard cannons is really nice for them. Poles, going into the C tier, I would have put them probably in the B tier prior to the last patch where they lost their villager HP regeneration in the Dark Age. That was a huge part of the civ because you played Poles on flank, you went for the Vil fights, and then you were able to follow that up with your really strong economy, and then add in the late game either Schlachta Privilege Cavalier spam or a bunch of Obuki. And again, you have bombard cannons. Nowadays, you don't really have anything going for you in the Vil fight, so it's like, what's the point, man? You can't really play them in pocket because you just don't have the population efficiency that you would want. A bunch of Obuki spam can be really strong, though, in a lot of situations, as they absolutely crush halbs, and they could even tank some siege shots pretty effectively. And your eco is fantastic, so it's not like they're D tier, but I definitely don't like Poles that much on BF relative to what I used to. Portuguese, gonna be going in the A tier. Portuguese are a really solid civ. You can play them on flank, of course. You don't have much going for you in the early game, but you go fast imp with Faderia spam. You can kind of use that in place of your economy. Push with a bunch of halbs and bombard towers, arbs, hand cannons. That gold discount is quite nice. You can also play them with a more high eco approach. You don't really have anything helping you out in that regard, but if you just are in a situation where you boom to like 140 vils, you have strong expensive units that you can spam in the late game. Also, this is one of the best bombard tower spamming civs because the Faderias and the stone generation that you get from them is really, really helpful. So, yeah. Very strong civ. I don't think they're quite to the S tier, but they are a solid choice nonetheless. Saracens, going to be going in the B tier. Saracens are a little bit of an odd civ. We see them played on flank for their fast archer pressure with the team bonus. You can hit some nice timings with your market. You have good monks. All of that is quite nice, and we also see them played on pocket where you can get to eventually Mameluke plus Siege Onager with counterweight, which is really, really good, but it's also incredibly slow to get to, and you don't really have an amazing eco to help get you there. You can struggle a lot in early Imperial Age. It's a civ that can be really powerful, and the ceiling is so high that I definitely think they should be in B tier, not C tier. Because I feel like, yeah, the potential of Saracens is way higher than any of the C-tier civs, but it's still a bit tricky to play and a bit difficult to make work, especially in that early Imperial Age time, like I was saying. Sicilians, going to be in the B tier. I know they just got buffed recently, so maybe Sergeants are going to see a bit more play, although Sergeants aren't actually buffed in the Imperial Age. You know, if they're a Halb Siege Onager civ, it can be okay, it can work. Nothing that's really all that exciting. You can maybe go for Hobart Cavalier if you really need to, but chances are you'd rather just have a Paladin civ. So, I mean, Sicilians, they're fine. They get the job done. Slavs, gonna be in the A tier. Another pocket civ, really strong Halb siege play. Druzhna champs can also be awesome in those big massed up fights especially. You do have a little bit of weakness in that you don't have any gunpowder and you're a little bit weak to gunpowder. You don't have heresy, which can also kind of bite you in the butt in a lot of cases. Boyars can work in late game, especially as they have now been buffed slightly. I mean, I like Slavs a lot on BF. I don't think they're quite to Celts tier, or maybe one or two of the other civs that we're going to see in just a second. Very, very strong civ in general, though, for sure. Great eco, of course. Spanish, right to the S tier. Spanish trade is awesome. You can play aggressively with conquistadors and a castle drop, so if you have your flank who's going with like a big Vil fight, and then both flanks are kind of reeling after that, you drop a castle, you add in some conquistadors, you bust in with a couple of petards, and suddenly, you know, the enemy flank is just like turbo dead. You can also play them much more standard. You can play them as a paladin civ. They have fully upgraded paladins. You have bombard towers. You have supremacy villagers. And of course, the all-important team bonus with the more efficient trade, which is just absolutely amazing in the late game. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention it earlier, but Bohemian trade bonus is really, really sick on BF as well, getting that trade going quickly. But yeah, back to Spanish, really strong, pretty flexible in how you can play them either aggressively or defensively. You have the fully upgraded trash as well, which can situationally be useful. Yeah, just a strong S tier civ for sure. Not a civ that you would pick first very often, but they're a civ that you pick in like the top 5 civs. Or like within your first 5 picks, you probably will see Spanish. Tatars, gonna be going in D tier. This is a very awkward BF civ. You can play them on flank and kind of try and get to your cav archers, but that's a little slow to do, and you still kind of die to siege onagers because you don't have bombard cannons and you don't have anything that really help you snipe them. We see Tatars played more in pocket for Keshig spam, which can work. I've even seen Cav Archer play from pocket kind of work, but again, you'd rather have paladins most of the time. Your eco is solid, but not amazing. Tatars are just a civ that are more, predisposed towards open maps, like the rest of the D tier civs, honestly. Teutons, right to the S tier. You can play them as a Halb Siege civ, and they are one of the best Halb Siege civs out there with your extra armor for your infantry. You have Ironclad for your siege onagers. You have bombard cannons. You have great monks. You have the conversion resistance team bonus. Your boom is awesome. You have paladins with extra melee armor. You have bombard towers. Like, what more do you want in a civ? Yeah, Teutons, easy S tier civ for Black Forest. They're even a little bit flexible on how you can approach them, and having that team bonus to help resist monks is awesome. Speaking of top tier Black Forest civs, we got the Turks going right to the S tier. Now, these guys are kind of interesting in that they can play either flank or pocket. Flank, you can kind of just like hang in there, have that more low eco approach, castle drop with Janissaries, which, to be fair, you can also do in pocket. And then just try and sort of stall things out to late game, and then you just spam bombarded towers with artillery everywhere, and they just kill everything. You have your sick bombard cannons, Janissaries, like I said, and then the Sipahi Cav Archers. Just a really, really strong civ. They can work, like I said, in flank or pocket. You can have a low eco approach or a high eco approach with this civ. Turks are just really, really good. You do have to be careful because you don't have onagers to help you cut your way through, which is why I'm like a little bit dubious about them in pocket sometimes, because if you're facing just an opponent who's like fully walled behind their forest, then suddenly, if you really need to push as Turks, then it's like you're stalling out, but it's not that big of a deal. Oops. Turks are really good. Vietnamese. It's either C tier or B tier. Rattan archers can be pretty good. You know what? You also have the battle elephant play, which can be quite nice. So yeah, I think they'll sneak their way into the B tier. You know what? Sure. We'll put them in the B tier. It's gonna screw with the webcam a little bit, but you know what? We're gonna survive. Yeah, they're just they're an okay civ. They have strong archer play. You can see where your opponents are, so you know if you need to like really pressure the Vil fighting. Rattan archers, battle elephants, bombard cans. You do have solid options, but it's not like the most exciting civ in the world. It feels like fairly consistent, but your power level isn't super high. Anyway, last but not least, we will have the Vikings, who are going to be in the D tier. This is not a setting where Vikings thrive. They're usually, along with Chinese, they're usually the last 2 civ picks. Yes, Vikings have been buffed, but you still don't really have anything to help you not die to siege onagers and just civs that are stronger up front. You obviously don't want to play them as pocket, but as flank, your archers aren't that exciting until Bogsvegar comes in. Yeah, just not the greatest civ for Black Forest. Anyway, guys, I actually think I did a pretty good job of being efficient and getting through all of the civs quickly. So, hope you all enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And as always, I would like to take a quick moment to thank my Patreon supporters, with Anonymous and Tristan in the Great Wolf tier, and then Carolyn, Donnie, Elvanor, Hryru, and Tandoori in the Dire Wolf tier. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and to all of you for enjoying this video, and I'll see you guys next time.